I'm going to pass over to Gill.
Thank you, Rachel. Well, good evening, everybody. It's lovely to have you all here. I didn't think when I started my mindfulness journey that I'd be actually conducting a virtual mindfulness session, but it's lovely to have you all here. My journey began with mindfulness when I was a nurture teacher 18 years ago. And I don't know how much you know nurture groups, how many of you know nurture groups? And I think I never really equated the practice with education and how it would, I didn't see how it could help. But I was working with a group of approximately 10 young people with various difficulties, shall we say, backgrounds, barriers. And the mindfulness was part of the structure of a session. We used to come in of a morning and we'd greet one another, and we'd all sit in a circle and we'd positively greet one another and say something nice. It wasn't forced. It was somebody liked how you know the shirt you were wearing, or liked your eyes, or some of the children, well, they were primary, by the way, so some of the children would just say something. Some wouldn't say anything at all, but we used to encourage them just to sit on a chair, and we had a little cabinet with little trinkets. And then we would start to have what we called our relaxation session. So it's almost as if the word relaxation sent a message that this was the time that we were all going to be calm. And we're in a big room. They could choose wherever they wanted to go. We had a massive big comfy area with cushions and lots of places where they could be comfortable. They could also sit if they wanted to stay where they were. And then we'd start a relaxation session. And I'm going to do something similar with you tonight once we've had a little look at the whole journey. But that's how my mindfulness as a teacher journey began. Okay, so what is it, mindfulness, as in a definition? And I just want you to take a few minutes just to have a look at that definition, just to see what it says to you. A mental state achieved by focusing one's awareness on the present moment while calmly acknowledging and accepting one's feelings, thoughts, and bodily sensations, and it's used as a therapeutic technique. And I think that's really interesting, just to have a few minutes just while we come into the calm session that we're hoping to have, just to really focus in on what we're here for and what we're here to think about. So just give you a few minutes, just a minute or two, just to read that, and hopefully that might resonate with your own mindfulness journey and your own experience. But basically that's kind of a dictionary definition. Okay, sorry. And for those of you who've got more knowledge, you'll know that mindfulness has its origins in Buddhism and some of the religious practices. And I think it really does allow you to pay attention to the actual experience without any filters, in a purposeful and non-judgmental manner. And it allows you to pursue a state of your mind free of self-judgment. I think we can be our own worst enemy sometimes. We can have so many thoughts that buzz around in our head. We're very busy. We live in a very busy world. And I think one thing I love about mindfulness, that it's non-judgmental, and you just have to stop and be still. And I think you can appreciate the actual moment that you're in and think about things like your breathing, what you can hear, what you can see. And I've done a link that, because we'll send the PowerPoint to everybody, I've done a link so you can read more into it. But I just think that I really like the fact that mindfulness is non-judgmental. And so anybody can come into a session. And I think it's almost in itself, once everybody begins to be calm, that's the beginning of the sort of non-judgmental. Because I think I've tried it with 3-year-olds, and although they do find it hard to sit still, it's worked with 3-year-olds, and I've tried it with older children, but I'll go more into that later on. But yeah, we're just going to focus. So I'm hoping you're beginning to start to feel calm and in the moment. Okay. Now, for the scientists among us, and for those who are not scientists, you know, some people might think, well, you know, I'm not really sure how all that breathing and relaxing, etc., can have an effect. And I think one thing I will say that, you know, in the sort of research that's out there, it's very difficult, because how many studies have been done with groups and sort of, you know, probes attached to heads while they've been in sessions. The research is a little bit sketchy, I've got to say, although there is lots floating about. But basically, if you look at the brain and the activity of the brain, once the brain is very busy, and the mindfulness state helps to calm the brain, because you're actually allowing the neurological passages, you can't really say, just a free flow in a way, because you're trying to empty your mind. And so brain activity, which can be controlled by emotions and hormones and lots of other different things, even when you move your blood flow around your body, I think some studies have shown that actually, if you look at the brain in a calm state of mindfulness, and this is probably more in a meditative state where somebody's probably been calm for quite a while, because lots of the hormones that are the stress hormones take a long time to leave the body, which might make sense when you're dealing with young people, perhaps who've entered into the sort of fight or flight, and lots of hormones are buzzing about. So mindfulness just allows your brain to be calm, because there are no threats. It's non-judgmental. Hopefully it gives you a chance just to focus. So the brain activity can be minimized. Okay, so that's basically just to show you a picture of what a mindful brain, if there is such a thing, can look like. Okay, now, the principles of mindfulness. There are 7 that are the basic principles. So I've already talked about non-judging. You can be an impartial witness on your own experience. So you don't even need to think. You don't need to sort of get a textbook out. You don't need to label anything. You can just be in the moment. And I think that that's coupled with patience, which patience is a form of wisdom, and being able to accept that fact that you really just need to be. If you think about your own body and your own, how you began, how life begins, and how, you know, I always think if you can think of your heart beating, that sometimes helps to sort of help you to focus. I think it's good to remain open and curious and receptive, and to trust that you have feelings, and you are a being, and just to be yourself. And I think it's with, you know, it's just, that's it. It's simple. We're not striving to be anything or to reach a state, and obviously the practices, there are mindful practices that can take us, you know, into sort of a deeper meditative state. And I think we naturally, as human beings, I think when we are calm and we relax, I think we enter the kind of beginnings of that state anyway. You might find people go off to walk on their own, and they spend some time alone, and in a way that's kind of your sort of body sort of telling you that you need some that peaceful time, that calm time. So I think, yeah, non-striving, acceptance, and of letting go of anything else, so completely emptying your mind of anything else. So they are the principles. They're quite simple. Hope they make sense, and I hope it's hope it's all sort of making sense. People can be quite skeptical. How can a practice like that help? Well, I'm hoping I'm going to be able to show you that in the next half an hour as we try to sort of focus. Okay, there will be times where we can have a break and we can have a little sort of chat if we need to. But I hope you're all okay so far. Okay. Now, I want you to look at the symbols. There's 4 pictures in front of us. And for those of you who already know, you'll have what they are. But it'll be interesting just to see what you would make of picture 1, picture 2, picture 3, and picture 4. You've got a little notepad by the side. Just have a little look at those. And I'm going to flick onto the next slide, which will have the answers. Unless anybody wants to tell me, do they already know? It'd be good to share knowledge. If anybody wants to unmute and speak. No? Oh, you're obviously super quiet and you can let me do all the talking, I can see. Okay, so.
Is it the 4 elements? Fire, earth, air and water. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Do you know which ones are which?
Oh no.
Number 1 is
fire.
I'm not going to put you on that. Yeah. The first one is fire. And the next one is the air.
Water.
And air and water. And yeah, my daughter has had the earth sign tattooed on the back of her neck. Would you like to know? That's just one of the, don't ask me where that came from. But I think what we need to talk about here is the elements and how important they are in the practice of mindfulness. They are, especially the earth, we are of the earth. And there are lots of grounding and techniques, forest bathing. I know that I need to be outside. I know I feel better when I have spent time outside in nature, very simple, in a forest, or it can be anywhere, or even near water. But I know sort of the fire comes into it if people have candles, and even sitting by a fire, how reflective is that? So I think the elements of the earth are a very important part of mindfulness, and you will find your own and some of the techniques if you're really feeling super stressed. You can go and lie in a forest safely, but that on a mat, on a calm day, and just be, because I think there's nowhere more peaceful than when there's nothing but trees. It'd be a bit dirty at this time of year, but that doesn't really matter. And I think the smells and the sensory experience, and generally just the whole thing, for me, I know that I feel so much better and calmer when I've spent time in nature. And I think it's getting to know, we do forget. And I think it's really important. One of the techniques of mindfulness is to actually, walk barefoot in nature. Whether it's in a stream, whether it's in some leaves, nice green lush grass. I think that would be nice. That would be a choice, wouldn't it, for some? But again, I think we forget how much we are removed from nature, unless you live completely within nature, and how that can affect us and can affect our mood and our very sort of existence. How much time do we spend in nature? And I don't think you can talk about mindfulness without talking about the elements. How I'm calmed when I look at water and fountains, and I know that's where you can make your garden into water features in gardens, etc. These are all encouraging us to be mindful. We'll sit and we'll watch. We won't probably think about anything. We'll just watch the water flowing, and I think that's really important. That's an important part of what mindfulness is about. Okay, so I hope you're all still with me. Okay, so for the first bit, before we even go and try to sort of do anything else, I was just thinking, if you wanted to move your laptop onto the floor, get a comfy cushion. You don't have to get a notepad and pen if you want to, if you want some water. But I was just going to ask you, and I hope you're going to give me some feedback after this. just to take 3 minutes. I'm going to time it to be still. I'm not going to tell you anything to do. I'm just going to ask you to be completely silent. And then we're going to just talk about how we felt. Okay. Okay, would anybody like to share how they felt when we just were completely still? Anybody like to share?
I'm feeling quite centered,
Lovely.
calm, but I have spent all day in a spa.
Lovely, I like that. Anybody else?
I noticed that my breathing naturally slowed down.
Lovely, yes.
For me, I was quite busy just before this because at the last minute I had to move and run upstairs to my computer from where I'd all sat. So it's quite sort of in a rush. And I think that imagining you in a favourite place really stopped me thinking about all the things I'd just been doing just beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was, you know, I was up a hill that I used to walk up, and it's always then some wilderness like usually up a hill or by the sea, and then then I can imagine looking at myself, you know, just looking out, and that would be where I would be most mindful. But I think if I had less of a rush before, I was in a particularly unmindful place as this started. So not as far.
Yeah, well, that's lovely. Yeah, and sorry, go on. Sorry.
I was just going to say that I found the fact that there are other people doing the same thing, because I wasn't expecting online to feel very sort of absorbed and conscious of the fact that other people are as well. And I find that has a much sort of effective sense of peacefulness and calm, that you're sharing the calm of other people. And I was not expecting to find that on an online scenario. So yeah, quite lovely.
Oh, that's lovely. And I know Margaret's put that her breathing slowed down, she felt more relaxed, shoulders dropped. And I think we don't realise how tense we can be and how distracted and how busy until we actually stop. And as you say, you know, we're all together. And especially, you know, I think we can have 50 million things going on in our, you know, I know that's an exaggeration, but I think we can. So hopefully, so that's really interesting. That's without even doing anything at all. That's actually just stopping and taking the time to be together. So there's something in that, isn't there, as a journey, as we're sort of considering everything. There's even something in that. Okay, so what I want you to do is, and what I want to encourage you to do, what I help you to do, is get more out of that calmness, get more of that time. And you can see on the screen, I've popped a rectangle on. And the reason now, I like it horizontal, but you may well like it vertically, because the idea is, because the next question is, how do we enter a state of mindfulness? So the idea really is, we breathe in on the short sides of the rectangle and we breathe out on the long sides of the rectangle. So we're breathing out longer than we're breathing in, but everybody's journey is different. And it's just a guide, because if you think, if you try to breathe in a circle, you kind of like, there's no end and there's no beginning really, is there? And also a triangle, again, you might evenly breathe, you know, it's and a square, the same, you sort of in, out. So I just wanted to, it's just a visual tool. You can use this as well with young people, but I'm going to go on to that later. But just take just a little minute and just have a little practice. Don't mind if you want to turn your mics off, if you want to make any noises. I just tend to, obviously, I usually choose a corner, and as I say, it's really just breathing in and trying to blow out as long as you can. So we'll just give you just a few seconds really, just to try and sort of get your head around that rectangular breathing, just as long as you're blowing out more than you're breathing in. And while you're practicing that, because I'm sure you can all imagine a rectangle, I'll move on to the next slide. I'm just going to pop some music on, because sometimes it's just nice to try to empty your mind of everything that you're thinking of. Okay, just for it, and that'll just be for a couple of, it's just about 30-40 seconds. Okay, sorry that was short and sweet. You're back in the spa, that's lovely. And sorry that was so short and sweet. I'm going to use some more music later on, but that's just to try to help you to relax, because I don't think it's easy just to suddenly decide. Okay, so now we're just going to have a session where we just have about 5 minutes, and we're just going to try to completely relax as much as possible. Now I'm going to read from a script, which is, I've tagged that in so you can have a look at this afterwards. But deep breathing activates the vagus nerve. There's a lot of material that's around at the moment talking about the vagus nerve, and they are realizing, I think, you know, sort of scientists, doctors, whoever, are realizing the importance, okay, of that, because it affects your whole body, things like your mood, your digestion, your heart rate. And it'll send more oxygen to your brain and other organs when it's needed and when it thinks that that's needed. So as we did before, part of mindfulness is checking in with yourself, and that's when you can start to use it throughout your day to check in, and check in. You know, especially if you can feel yourself maybe becoming overwhelmed or unsettled or uncertain. So we're going to try some breathing. our rectangular breathing, if that helps. But if you want to get comfortable at this point, you can close your eyes and turn your cameras off if you need to, and just try to relax. And when you are trying to relax, and I'm going to try to encourage you as much as possible, if your mind wanders, try to bring it back. I sometimes imagine a white feather, but that just could be me. But I think you really have to completely empty your mind. So the ratio breathing, as I call it, if mathematicians among us. So obviously, as long as you're breathing out more than you're breathing in, you will oxygenate your cells, and it'll almost become a process. But before we do that, we really need to start to relax our body. Now, the basic principle really is starting from your toes. If you can curl your toes really, really, really tightly, and then just let them go. Okay. And you could make circles with your feet, with your ankles. Tense them as long as we are tensing, and then we are releasing. Okay. And as you move up your body, try to imagine your calves relaxing, your knees relaxing. Some people try to tap their thighs to sort of give them, I don't know if you've ever heard of the tapping, but tapping is a route, it is part of mindfulness that some people incorporate into their practice. So if that helps you to relax your thighs all the time, remember though, the most important thing is if you're breathing in through your nose and blow it out through your mouth. So you're really controlling your breathing, and just be mindful. And some of the practices of mindfulness, a sensation, you might notice a particular sensation in your body. That's one of the practices that you can notice when you're breathing. Just get yourself into a state. So I'm going to, let's move up the body. The main thing, your tongue should not be on the roof of your mouth, although mindfulness is about, you know, you being comfortable with you, and I can't tell you. But a good practice would be just to move your tongue down if it's on the roof of your mouth. If your shoulders are really high, you can shrug them to your ears and then just let them fall. You might need to do that a few times. If you want to circle your shoulders as well, that is really good. It's a good technique to help you to relax. If you circle your shoulders, you can circle them forward and back. But if you incorporate that with your breathing, and then you can, and another good thing to get you to relax is to clench your fists and then just slowly uncurl fingers, and again clench your fists. And then I'm just going to read you a mindful breathing script. So just non-judgmental, just really relax as much as you possible. Remember, you're breathing in through your nose, out through your mouth. And this is tagged at the top if you need to use it again. So make sure you're comfortable and your eyes are closed and you are breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. Although if that's uncomfortable, find a breathing rhythm for you. Okay. And just give your full attention to each breath. And notice if you're breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth, however you're breathing, just notice, give the full attention to your own breathing. Notice how when you inhale and exhale, you feel different. You might notice your lungs rising and falling, or the cool air or the warm air. But as long as you feel relaxed, that is the main thing. And just breathe away. Don't try to control your breath, and don't try to, if you're struggling in any way, don't worry. I'm just going to pop a little bit of background music on, and that just might help you get back into the, it can just be in the background. If your mind wanders to any thoughts that you've got or problems, acknowledge that your mind is wandering and don't worry. but try to relax and remember to breathe. Now, problems and difficulties and things that you've got to solve and things that you've got going on, a good creative visualization is to perhaps just imagine each one of those thoughts or difficulties or issues, and what you do is you imagine you're by a stream, and you can actually do this if you do go out into nature, and just they're each lovely leaves, and pop those in the stream, and if you can imagine them floating away, because for now you need to be mindful and focus on the moment and focus on your breathing. Now, if there's any pain in your body, any discomfort in your body, acknowledge that. Acknowledge that, because it could be that your back's slightly aching, or try to get yourself as comfy as possible. But just relax. Remember, breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth, gently and carefully. You may have got a memory that's just flashed into your mind, or you may be remembering an event of the day or event from a few days ago. That's absolutely fine. Acknowledge it, but try to empty your mind of the memory as much as possible, because your subconscious mind will be thinking about those things. And just breathe, focus, and acknowledge. Okay. And when you're ready, if you've got your eyes closed, you can open them. Just keep calm and just be. There's no pressure. If we were in a session together, if we were in a session together and we were all together, it's a good time just to take a sip of water. Just to even wriggle about sometimes. Some people like to wriggle their fingers, wriggle their toes, and really you're just allowing the oxygen to flow through your body, and you're just enjoying that really peaceful moment when all you've got is you and your thoughts. Okay, and it's really being comfortable with yourself. Everybody's really quiet, so I can't tell what you're thinking and what you're feeling. I'm hoping you're feeling slightly more relaxed, but obviously you can begin your own mindfulness journey if you haven't already. It's just making sure that it's not about solving problems or anything else. It's about being in the moment. And I think mindfulness allows you then to sometimes focus and be positive and look at situations slightly differently when you take a step back. And your subconscious mind is working all the time. And when you take your breaths or you check in with yourself throughout the day, and you can take a deep breath in and out, it somehow reminds you that there is a greater force. We are of the earth. If you think about how a seed grows into an oak tree from a tiny seed, and I know the sort of biological but it's not about that. It's about the miracle of life, and who everybody's different, everybody's individual, and you're all unique and you're all special, and it's lovely to have you in the session tonight, and I hope you've enjoyed that. I'm sorry to wake you up from that. I'm just conscious that has anybody got any questions at this point? Has anybody got anything they want to say, want to share? Are you all going to sleep now? You're all awake? Oh dear.
I just wanted to say, how do you, I know this isn't strictly related to the young people at the moment, but if my voice is echoing, I'm just in a big room. How do you, when you're in a situation where you know there's a young person who is basically, apart from maybe walking the dog for 20 minutes a day, they haven't got agoraphobia or anything, they're just inside all the time on social media or whatever it is, and you know that just spending a bit of time in the fresh air would make a difference. How do you, that's
Okay,
a different one, isn't it?
hopefully I'm going to cover that in the next few slides. I'm just going to show you some of the material that's around us. Let me get this. There's some material, is that the right thing? There's some material around that. I'm going to start off with thinking about primary children, and then we will come back to that. So that's a really good question. But the breathing that we've just done, Young Minds have got a lot of material. Just type in Young Minds, they have got a lot of material and a lot of ideas, and obviously you can introduce that into your sessions when you think, but I'm going to show you different ways. But obviously, if you can just see the simple method of breathing in and out and in and out, and it's actually just getting a young person to perhaps focus on the breathing and to be mindful. It's actually, they probably never even maybe do that, but there's a lot of material on Young Minds, because obviously they're very focused on calming. There's a lot of stress, anxiety. A lot of young people suffer from anxiety and acknowledge it. So that's just a pinpoint to that website if you haven't been on. There's printables, there's lots of different ideas, but again, because I know each young person is different and unique, and I think it's important that we look at them that way, and each young person will need our support in different ways. But I am going to answer that sort of question next. These are just some ideas that I have used, and hopefully you've got them on the PowerPoint afterwards. I think we, even for the people, the young person that we just talked about, focus on the 5 senses, for me, is the beginning of the mindfulness journey for young people, because I think in the digital age we can become absorbed in lots of different things, as you say, social media, etc. If you're older, you can still use some of these are sort of the primary techniques. I'm going to go on to the material to use with secondary, but the 5 senses I really like using. You can have sniffy bag, you can have sniffy socks, different smells, lavender, lemon. I've done them before. I've put them on a coat hanger and just clipped them on, and I know it says smelly socks and they're not smelling that, you know, but the younger the child, the more they'll go for it. And just to talk about, because smells can provoke memories and connections, and so it's good to share some of your favorite smells. I've got a lemon by the side of me. You probably think, who's this? I've got a lemon by the side of me. I absolutely love the smell of lemon, and I realized that it's part of, I mean, there are the theory is that there are chakras in the body, and lemon actually is one of the things that can unblock. You know, that's more technical, that's for another day and another time, but I know that I really enjoy sniffing lemon. I like to look at the lemon. If you look at it, even if you took that to a session to start off with, how amazing is a lemon, a seed and a lemon? That is mindfulness. So looking at the facets of the lemon, looking at, you know, smelling it, and some people say, oh, I don't like that, you know, they might say that, but still, if you took something like ice in a flask to a session, watched it melt, you know, that's the beginning of mindfulness for me, for even for older children. But again, because we've got to really focus on just being, haven't we? And I think that's the main thing. You could talk about the different smells. I sometimes put for the last sock a little chocolate square, well, not a chocolate square, but you know, one in a packet, in a little packet if they're allowed, you know, little, you know, Maltese or whatever it is, or so that's nice as a treat, because sometimes I think we can, you know, that's just an exercise in itself, talking about the smells and imagining, you know, your favorite food. Perhaps that's the beginning of talking about mindfulness. Poetry is another thing that you can use. It's very cross-curricular, isn't it? You can use that. I know a lot of tutors use some mindful colouring. Now I have linked some, I won't won't open it now, but some affirmation cards, some ideas. There's a Word doc there if you want to make some of those. I sometimes look at proverbs, I look at quotes. A thing that I haven't put down here, which it might connect to the problem that the issue before. I don't know whether any of you looked at transient art with your young people. Now that to me can start at primary and go on. So you can't go outside, but maybe you could bring some of the outside in. But the transient art is brilliant. There's loads of inspiration. You don't need very much. I mean, if you're bringing things in, you've probably got some bugs and things in it to debug things. But again, it's starting off that the provoking questions, isn't it? Looking at the world, because I think we can live in such a busy life and inside all the time, and hopefully the young person may have you could bring something that you found on a walk, or shells or anything to do with nature, that can sort of start off those conversations that we need to have with our young people, to help them to appreciate the earth that they live on. It isn't just inside the four walls, is it? And from my experience, especially younger children, they love to be outside. I worked as a nursery teacher for quite a number of years, and they just didn't even know that it was raining, so they wouldn't. We have to sort of get them in. They would have gone out in all weathers, and how lovely is that? And I know that they lose that as they sort of grow up. And I've put on there different emotions. I think it's important that we acknowledge emotions. Emotions are something that we can't control, that we experience them, and if we try to repress them, in a way, that makes things sometimes worse. So I think that mindfulness techniques, if we can share them with the young people that we're working with, sometimes, just sometimes, it helps them to take that step back, because they might say, I'm sorry, I really, they know when they've experienced these heightened emotions, especially when they're hormone related, or whether they're, if they've got particular additional needs, etc. But I just think talking about them and acknowledging them and helping young people to I'm you'd never say that in a crisis situation, and I'm not talking about trauma, but I'm talking about young people perhaps who just need support to understand that we all have emotions. And you can use, I know we use some of the mood stars, but there are lots of things out there. So I just think talking about, I get cross when, and make it sort of humanizing the emotions can help start a young person's journey to mindfulness, because they might next time, or when they're reflecting, think about some of the things that you've said. Okay, so this is just a script that I put on the PowerPoint that you could perhaps use with secondary pupils, because maybe it sort of crops up perhaps when they're worried about tests and they're anxious. And I know some of you are marvelous at sort of bringing into that sort of the things that you need to do to try and keep calm. I think even just sort of drawing what thoughts are. So what are thoughts? And using sort of sketching that they're not tangible, are they? The thoughts. And so if you whatever, you can't really control them either. But what you can control is breathing, and that's going to slow down your heartbeat. And then there's going to be clarity, and it's explaining that sometimes to young people as well, that once you've released those hormones, the adrenaline, the cortisol, or a lot of the stress hormones, it takes a long time to leave your body, and don't think you're going to feel better sort of straight away. So give yourself that mindful time. It may be that you need to withdraw yourself, but maybe that you need to be quiet. It's helping young people understand the complexities of emotions, and perhaps calm breathing, perhaps when their friends are really irritating them, or in these situations, perhaps that they, I've had young people come to me and I just wanted to, and then we've stripped that back. And I know that I can understand exactly how you felt at that time. And sometimes, we work with young people who perhaps have got into those situations, and sort of it's overtaken, their education perhaps. So I just think these are important things that you can talk about with young people. It won't always be acknowledged, or it won't always be accepted, but I think there are inroads, and that's what I'm trying to give you ideas for inroads. Okay, there's some other ideas there that are on the PowerPoint, music, but I just wanted to, I'll show you this sheet. Hopefully it'll load up. This is a nice one to use with older children. It's 3 blessings exercise. So I don't know whether you've seen this before. This is a printable. It's on the PowerPoint. So say if you're working with a young person and you're concerned, and perhaps part of this, it isn't sort of part of the session, you don't know how you're going to incorporate it. So you just give them this, and every night for the next week, it says 10 minutes, but you don't, before you go to sleep, try to think of 3 things that went well and why they went well. And it can be anything. And I know a lot of the young people that we work with are quite isolated, but I still think, oh, well, I was able to do this, or it can be anything. And it doesn't always have to, it definitely doesn't always have to be education related. I got dressed straight away today and everything, worked well, or I was able to, do this, or to help with the pets. It can be anything. So you're beginning to ask that young person to make a journal, really. So then you can use your computer, you can use this on the computer, you doesn't need, because I know a lot of our young people don't actually like to write. You can scribe, if you can talk about it the next session. But it's making sure that young person has got things to celebrate, and they can be menial things in that's an opinion, isn't it? But they can be. And then next week's positive event, why did this happen? And writing about those positive, and it can be, make it really small. You can model this as well. You could probably do your own and then compare notes. You can scribe for the young person, because the first few times it depends on the how it's received and how receptive that young person is to these ideas. But this is just one idea. Gratitude is another thing as well, being grateful. What are you grateful for? I've put up some of the affirmation cards earlier in the slide. Again, you can sort of have a look at those. And I think it's only when young people start to think, oh, right, okay, because the basic, we're very lucky that we've got the basics, and sometimes some people don't have that. We're very lucky in the society that we live in. Food, shelters, something. So that's that little sheet. And then there's a plethora. This is from Alder Hay. I've linked this in. Alder Hay is a clinical psychologist has written. There's an absolute plethora of ideas here. A lot to do with breathing. But there are so many different. I love some of these. Bubbles are a nice one with younger children. This is a nice one, belly buddies, cuddly toys. I know a lot of our young people have cuddly toys, whatever their age. And then you provide a glass of small lightweight objects. They can be anything. And then students lay on their backs if they want to. But you can talk them through mindful breathing. You don't have to lay on the backs with this one. It doesn't really matter. But you can sort of be inventive. You're being mindful when the young person is actually quiet, that sort of reflective and has got their little cuddly with them. If you've got something visual, you can have some sensory material that you can give to your young people, that because some young people are really like that sort of, as long as they're not sensory sensitive, but get to know what they like, and then you can just breathe with them and then guide them, and that's lovely to when they do that activity, and that's a lovely one. There's lots of ideas here. Breathing colours, again with younger children, you can use you can use lots and lots of different things. There's one down here about mindful eating, and again it depends on what you have in your session, but sometimes this is a good place to start with children and young people. And you don't really need much, but marshmallows are a nice one if they're allowed, and it's a nice treat. You can sort of I just talk about all the different sensations, and you know, it can be anything. It can be anything. But I just think that's a nice place to start. There's just loads of ideas here. But again, I think if you can just you can just use, because the brain begins to make connections. And I think with young people, and with the young people that I've worked with and tried mindfulness techniques, sometimes they might giggle and sometimes they take a while to sort of get in that zone. But I actually notice the very small changes. For some people, no, they you know, they don't get a lot out of it. But I haven't really worked with anybody yet that hasn't. You know, they say, "Oh, remember when you said, is that what you mean, that breathing thing?" And you know, they mock a bit. But I actually, you know, I always say, well, you know, when you're in bed at night and maybe you can't sleep, you know, try doing the, you know, because I usually go through the tighten and release process, you know, and using, try doing that and try to do your breathing when you can't sleep, and try. And that's a good place to start, because often young people do get anxious, especially perhaps if they've not had that day routine. So yeah, that's sort of some ideas there. Gratitude again, because lots of our young people are very talented, and it's not always in the areas of, they can be sort of anything they're really good at. They really enjoy sort of swimming, or they really enjoy sort of riding the bike or the skateboard. We've got lots of talented young people, and I think it's actually, you know, working on that young person's self-esteem that helps the mindfulness journey. So I hope that makes sense. There's loads of ideas there. I'll sort of I'll get back to. So yeah, secondary, lots and lots of different things there. And I think it's really important to remember that, you know, your own journey of mindfulness will help you to feel that you've got more to give in sessions, maybe, because I know if sometimes we never know what's going to happen when we get to a session. And I know if I'm sort of tense and I know I've had a busy week, and sometimes you don't feel as if you've got a lot to give. And I definitely think you know, after I started my mindfulness journey, that's why I do it, because then I've got so much more to give than if I don't, you know, make any time for myself. And I you know, I think that's really important. So this is just a quote. We're all connected. What affects one affects all in the web of life called Earth. And that's by an Indian chief. So that's mindfulness for me is about my place on this earth. And when we start to think about that and start to think about the whole earth and where we are in it all, we're very unique. Even if we're an identical twin, we're unique. And I think it's about that, and perhaps you know, helping our young people to celebrate their own uniqueness and individuality, no matter, you know, who they are, what they've experienced. I think it's about helping them to feel special and connected. So I hope that makes some sense. So thank you so much. I hope that's been useful, and I hope that's helped you. I feel like it's been a whistle-stop tour, but I don't want to keep you too long, and I'm hoping you're going to come back with your own little. Anybody got anything to say? Anybody got anything to share? Did you pick up some ideas there? Anybody use mindfulness in their sessions? Anybody need any further support or advice?